Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Niall here. Before this episode begins, I wanted just to quickly just give kind of a warning on this episode. We're dealing with Monarch programming in this, which kind of like we're talking about the kind of the pop star mind control Monarch programming type of thing. And inside of that, as part of it, there is a lot of discussion of some heavy topics. So this is just kind of a blanket warning for if people are very sensitive to topics in the realm of like torture, abuse, both sexual, physical, of any kind, that kind of stuff. The stuff that you would kind of consider your satanic cabal-y type nefarious practices. Just be warned about this episode, or if you want to just skip this one or something, totally understandable. Just wanted to give everyone a quick little warning before the episode starts, because it's a part of this. It's not something we spend the entire episode on, but it is a part of it. So just giving everyone a warning before they get into it. So thank you for listening and supporting the show. Here is the episode. Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try to make your world a little weirder. I'm Niall.
And I'm Kyle, and I'm taking full advantage of the fact that Niall is not looking at me right now. I'm in my underwear. I've got a nice can of seltzer right here. And Niall can't look at me and be like, "Oh, shush all the drinking noises" that he always does.
I'm a real stickler in the recording process. I don't let anything happen.
Yeah, he's a real. What's the term? Is it a marm? Like a
school marm?
Yeah, like a school marm. He's a real school marm about mouth noises. And I'm just getting away with all the illegal activity over here on my end today.
That's totally fair.
Maybe we should have just quickly addressed that once again. Fighting against our current reality, we are taking the best precautions against a possible COVID exposure. So I feel like this is just going to be our reality for a long time moving forward. So I guess down the road, I don't need to tell people that, but it's unfortunately the case. So
the unfortunate side effect is that, that is happening, but also the nice thing is the no AC era is over.
Oh, thank God.
The problem has been rectified. So when we go back to recording in person in the next episode, it will be much more comfortable. So
I won't have to record in the nude again.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and jump in, because I'm going to go ahead and just brace everyone right now. This is it is going to be a two-parter. There is a lot to talk about in this episode and the following episode. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, because boy, do we have some stuff to talk about. Now, this topic is kind of this is a thing I've been threatening to do for a long fucking time. Actually, all the way back from episode 11, which was entitled Beelzebub and His Big Damn Band, where Kyle covered Project Monarch.
Okay. I recognized the title, but I didn't immediately remember what the topic was. But that title's pretty memorable, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, it is. This is also more. This is almost certainly more for you than for anyone else. But this is the random Scott appears 3/4 of the way through the episode.
Okay. I can never remember
Yeah.
what episode that is.
Yeah, you and I have been trying to remember what episode that was for a while, and there it is. It's
You
episode
figured
11.
it
So
out.
yeah, so you were talking about Project Monarch, which is a kind of subdivision or kind of offshoot of MK Ultra. That's all about mind control and all that kind of stuff. And I, throughout the episode, kept threatening to do a Pop Stars episode. Um,
Mm.
and when I started digging into trying to do a Pop Stars episode, it turns out there's like I could do 3 or 4 episodes on this topic at least, but I've narrowed it down to 2. We didn't really cover this side of it. You covered a lot of like kind of the history of the program and MK Ultra and like how it turned into Monarch and stuff. And I've got some extra stuff on that. But today we're going to talk a lot about Monarch mind control and the ways that it is used. There are 2 main ways that it is used, and we're going to talk about both of them. One in this episode, one in the next episode. So
Okay, now MK Ultra, Project Monarch, Mind Control. Those are the 2 like supposed government secret plots to control people's minds. But I do think that those 2 ideas are the most often associated with celebrities. Now, in my mind, Monarch is more closely associated with celebrities, but I have a feeling to other people, maybe I have a feeling other people would think of MK Ultra as being more of the celebrity thing, but I've always envisioned MK Ultra as being more of like a, if I remember correctly, it was a lot more like civilians who were experimented on and things like that, and not so much a celebrity thing. I don't know. That's how it is in my mind. I don't know if that's actually the case, but I'm sure you're going to tell me.
yeah, I've got there's a lot on this because it's actually much more. There's a lot to this, but the distinction you're making isn't entirely false. Like MK Ultra was a confirmed thing that the government took on starting in 1953. It was founded it came into existence on April 13th, 1953, proposed by Richard Helms, Deputy Director of Central Intelligence. And it is basically looking into military application of ways to get people coerced in extra strange methods. It actually has, as far as I can find on the internet, it has actually 149 different sub projects, and they range from stuff like MK Search or Operation Spellbinder, which is like basically your Manchurian sleeper candidate kind of thing. It's your Manchurian candidate sleeper agent program. Operation Often, which dealt a little bit into like researching into occult forces and stuff like that. And there's all these other things. And the thing that is kind of that I found really interesting about this is, even if you believe in Project Monarch, there is not a specific program that is Monarch. Monarch is a term and phrase used as a kind of almost like a verbal handshake between people that are into in this kind of thing, that are looking at these kinds of experiments and this kind of mind control programming. And it encompasses a lot of different things, depending on how far you want to go into the conspiracy. But there's not a specific program called Monarch.
Okay,
it is just a catch-all for a lot of things.
Okay, so you're telling me that, the Venture Brothers, for instance, was Doc Hammer and the other one telling doing that sort of open secret thing where they like wink at the public, like, hey, we know about Project Monarch, we have a whole character about that, right? Like, is that the kind of thing that I could sort of read into if I was a conspiracy theory brain sort of guy?
You very much could, and we will talk a lot about that kind of stuff in the next episode.
Okay.
So how I'm breaking this up for people who are into this kind of thing is basically, as I was going through and doing a lot of research on Project Monarch or really just Monarch in general, I should stop calling it project since it's not specifically a project, there's kind of 2 uses. There is the actual crafting of like agents that can be that are like, it's the pop star thing. Like they're crafting like celebrities and pop stars into these broken down multi-personality alter agents that that can be used for nefarious purposes, and that's one side of it.
Right.
And then there is the kind of seeding these ideas and this programming into media that is then propagated into the masses.
Right. Now I'm realizing something. I think the reason I have such a, because like you were mentioning some of the MK programs, which I'm familiar with from doing my research on MK Ultra and stuff like that. And I realized that if I remember correctly, one of the things that happened under the sort of umbrella of the like various MK projects, maybe even MK Ultra, like early on, I'm pretty sure that's also where Operation Midnight Climax comes from, right?
Yes. I believe that was a sub project. So
yeah,
this is okay.
I don't need to like relitigate that specific thing, but if you aren't aware of Operation Midnight Climax, I highly recommend giving that a Google.
It's honestly okay. So here's let me just. I got so deep down a rabbit hole here, and I've got like some actually fascinating to me information about where all this stuff came from. In the non-government confirmed stuff came from that we'll talk about at the end of this episode. But like Operation Midnight Climax and stuff are confirmed things that happened. It was part of the program of trying to use various means to gain mind control or control over people's suggestibility and everything. That one specifically deals with LSD.
Remote viewing too, stuff, right?
Yes, and remote viewing was another thing.
And that was Stargate, but
yes. So a lot of this stuff comes from a project called Project Artichoke, which was originally called Project Bluebird, that was dealing in hypnosis and using hypnosis for like basically trying to find ways to hypnotize people to do stuff they didn't want to do and get like information from people and everything. So it basically here's the timeline, the like order of events for this kind of stuff that I found interesting. People got interested in hypnosis and the military applications and usage of that. That was pre-MK Ultra in the 1940s. There was a guy that got like really into hypnosis and established some of the initial like proposals for things that became Project Bluebird and Artichoke. They found that they could they started trying to work on inducing a hypnotic state over telephone lines and through like visual signals and stuff across like a place and implanting ideas and thoughts into people through hypnotic means. And then they were like, oh, we could do this with drugs. Drugs are a good way to make people susceptible. And that's where like that's part of where MK Ultra came into things. They started to use like electroshock therapy because they found out that electroshock I shouldn't say therapy. They found out that you can use electroshocks to cause amnesia in people. And that's where MK Ultra really came into things, because they found out that basically some light torture is a really good way to make people like do what you want them to do. And some types of torture can make people forget.
Torture.
So then they started to...
It just, you're going to always get the answer you want though, right? Like it's not actually necessarily going to get you the truth. Also, right. I can only assume that the sort of like phone based hypnosis thing just sort of branched off and eventually became the field of telemarketing.
Very certainly. Like it's all stuff that like we'll talk about. So there's so much to talk about that will come into this in the next episode as well. But like the idea of trying to basically incept people in a hypnotic state through a telephone or through various other communications means really led to a lot of like military and espionage acts. There was a thing that I was reading about that they literally had an experiment where they put people in a hypnotic state and then basically made them put together and start like a bomb activation. And when they were taken out of hypnosis, they had no memory of doing these things. So they were straight up like, that is the level of stuff that they seem to be trying to do. I believe that's stuff that is at least borderline confirmed, if not confirmed. This is all like MK Ultra stuff. The Monarch, Monarch is stuff that is, for lack of a better descriptor, conspiracy. MK Ultra is stuff that we actually did.
Yeah.
And there's stuff that we still have like redacted or whatever. There's stuff like we don't have everything MK Ultra ever did, but that's the actual government program that was a real thing that the government has admitted to.
Right. Now I'm curious about something, Niall. When you were in like elementary or middle school, did you ever have the guy, the motivational speaker type guy who came to your school and claimed they I guess could hypnotize people in the audience?
No, I don't think I had that person, but I'm well aware of the type of exercise here.
Well, it seems to be a fairly well-known thing for people who were in elementary and middle school from the late 90s, early 2000s, because I've heard other people talk about it. And I remember in elementary school, I believe 6th grade, I somehow missed, I don't know, a pep rally type deal that had a motivational speaker guy. And I don't know if I was sick. I just remember I couldn't go. And I remember kids talking about how there had been some hypnotizing thing, some hypnotizing element to it. And I was like, oh man, I want to get hypnotized. And people were and I remember some kids being like, oh, it's crazy. And other kids being like, oh, it's totally fake. I don't know. But yeah. I know it's an experience that people have. And the concept of hypnosis is very weird to me because I've never experienced it. But when you talk to people who claim that it worked on them, it's I don't know. It's like it was a life-changing thing for them.
Yeah, there has to be something of having that level of control taken away from you that would be kind of
arousing,
eye-opening in a way. Yeah, well,
for some,
that, yeah. Maybe for some, I'm sure there's hypnosis kink out there.
You're sure? Hey, Niall, let me do you a favor. I can confirm there are hypnosis kinks out there.
Look, I know, but we got, look, I can't fully show my ass on this podcast. So but I have found hypnosis as an interest, it is a thing that's interesting to me. I still don't know how to feel about it because it feels like one of those things that you have to be very open to believe in it and to
right.
to have it have any effect on you. But at the same time, there's confirmed the things. The thing that's happened with doing this podcast is the things that the government has looked into for military purposes and have seem to have extensive testing with. I start thinking maybe that there actually is something to that, and I shouldn't just discount it wholly.
It does seem to be a certain personality or something or state of mind makes you more susceptible and. But also with things like MK Ultra, when people talk about remote viewing and things like that, I seem to recall from my research that generally the impression is that it didn't really amount to anything. We tried it, and I know a lot of that was also due in part to we had somehow found out that the Soviets during the Cold War were trying those things, and so it's well, we have to do it too. So I'm not saying that we don't do bogus shit, but also we do take this bogus shit seriously sometimes. And also, Niall, have you ever seen the guy, I think he's a Vegas guy who goes around and he gets people to during hypnosis, just straight up hands-free cum in their pants?
I have heard of this. I have not seen it.
Oh man, you got to check it out. It's really something.
Maybe we need to take a trip to Vegas and check this out. Do our own parapsychology research on this guy
definitely.
And his methods.
Definitely, we got to meet this guy.
So I'm just going to say as a blanket statement, from here on out, I'm going to be talking about Monarch, which is the conspiratorial side of things. It's not the confirmed side of things. So from basically here on out, we're in the realm of not confirmed. So
right,
Project Monarch or the Monarch program is there are people that think that it was in some part pioneered by a combination of the CIA and or FBI and also Disney.
Huh.
Because and that like a lot of the Disney parks and rides and like movies and stuff are used to help indoctrinate people more on the like wide scale side of things, more so than the specific sleeper agent, like the specific like pop star type side of things. But it is like I have an idea of where the Disney thing comes from, but I would be getting way too far ahead of myself to talk about it now. And it's also kind of dark. But it will Disney will come up throughout this podcast because it is like a recurring motif for reasons inside of Monarch.
Does it have anything to do with the whole "there's no moms in Disney movies" conspiracy? Does that brush up against it at all? No.
Not really. It's more about how it's more about being a massive pop cultural juggernaut that is used a lot in children, and the Monarch method basically starts with breaking the children's minds very, very young. This is like the I guess I keep wanting to say kayfabe answer more so than the real answer, which I feel like maybe I just need to like make it a blanket statement that the kayfabe means the conspiratorial, like quote unquote fake side of things. And it's just a term that is now part of my lexicon.
I think people can understand what we mean by our conspiracy kayfabe 100%.
Yeah, so that feels like the kayfabe side of things. The real side of it is quite a bit darker,
Okay.
but it's yeah. So
well, it does go in line with like what you said though, because like I've always seen that idea pop up with these sort of like fringe conspiracy things where it's like Disney is a part of the New World Order and they're prepping. It'll be things like, oh, we're prepping kids to not have like genuine like parental figures because we're going to like remove their parents or whatever, or like
dissolve the family unit.
Yeah.
Because under the New World Order, that is a system. Yeah, it's part of the system of control. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that we're going to talk about when we get into like the reasoning behind the stuff about like the kind of Illuminati cabal side of things and where that possibly comes from that I found very interesting. But we will get there. And this is kind of brings me to one of the lines that I kind of became unclear on as I went through all of this stuff is like, so Monarch is a program that supposedly was started by government agencies as an offshoot or subdivision of MK Ultra. But then as you go into the conspiracy side of things, it turns into an Illuminati thing very quickly. And I don't exactly know the line of demarcation if like the method was basically created by a government program and then used by the Illuminati, or if it's just like they're just one and the same. That is a line I don't quite understand.
Well, the Illuminati stuff and like the like shadowy cabal, insert shadowy cabal here, is so ill defined that really you could slot it in anywhere, and that's probably kind of the purpose.
Yeah, and you can just keep that in mind for a thing later on. So now for Monarch, when people talk about the Monarch program, they're typically talking about a program that involves between 40,000 and 2 million Americans who have been put through a method that people call either the Monarch method or the method of trauma, repetition, and reinforcement, which basically means they're going to intentionally induce trauma in you and do it a lot and do it frequently. And they do that through a pretty vast array of torture methods that allow them to break your psyche, induce alters, which are in some versions of things just like a split personality thing, and another side of things it's actually demonic, and they're given the alters allow demonic entities to come in and take control of that altar. Now, in some cases, whenever they talk about demons and stuff in these subjects, it's kind of metaphorical. It's kind of like a the kind of the I don't know, the just the terminology they use to talk about these insidious plots and plans and schemes. But in other cases, it is literal that they are actually giving you like demonic forces that come inside you and take over you.
Yeah, I remember covering this and just like, man, this is just like an all-you-can-eat buffet of like conspiracy content. Like, pick your poison. Do you want it to be supernatural, or do you want it to be a devious psychological New World Order trick? It's really, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. So there's multiple different types and levels of Monarch programming that are named after the letters of the Greek alphabet. So I'm going to go through them, try to get through them very quickly, because otherwise we're going to spend way too much time on this. So the most the like first level of it is the alpha, which is kind of the general programming that is just trying to make you have better memory retention along with some kind of like physical traits. And this stuff is usually done as kind of like almost like a base coat of like getting the symbolism and stuff into your brain so that you react to it, that then sets up kind of everything else. Then beta programming is what they refer to as sexual programming. This is your of your sex kitten programming.
No.
This is all that kind of stuff. Then delta is your killer programming, which is used for training special agents or elite, like, you know, your secret space program, like battalions and shit. This is where you get all of the skills where you get to just, where you'll just like all of a sudden like snap and just kill everybody. That's your delta programming. They also sometimes will weave in some self-destruct or suicide type instructions into this programming as well.
Good Lord.
Yeah, this is very all-encompassing. They've got something for everybody here. You then have your theta programming, which is considered psychic programming. This is your various abilities that are like telekinesis, psychic abilities, all that kind of stuff. This is especially strong in types of people that they call bloodliners, which are basically people that are have blood relations to the multi-generational like big satanic families, which I think is, we talked, I did an episode a long time ago about the 13 Illuminati families, and that I believe that's tied to this kind of stuff. It's like basically you're part of the quote unquote like royal bloodline of the Illuminati, and thus you have a better capability in these psychic abilities.
Well, but the psychic abilities are like being unlocked through like monarch like trauma, like altar splitting. Like what? So are you saying that that they'll like sometimes like experiment on their own bloodlines?
Yeah, you usually get like stronger soldiers out of bloodliners than you do non-bloodliners. So sometimes like when you have there's a whole thing about the various, so there's a whole part of this that is basically prostitution rings. And there are different levels of prostitution from your baseline to your presidential class. And sometimes these will be used to sire children. They will be in the bloodlines that will then be turned into soldiers. So that like everything is just raw materials to these people if you believe in this kind of thing.
I'm sorry. I thought you said presidential, and I thought that we were going to start prostituting out our president. It's a very, 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 very high class, top level prostitute, I guess, would be hooking up with Joe Biden, for instance.
Look, on the money plane, anything is possible. You can do anything. So I actually watched Money Plane not too long ago. Awful movie, but very entertaining.
I gotta check that one out. I still haven't seen it. I've heard whispers. I've heard mentions. One day I'll have to watch that one.
Turns out Adam Edge Copeland is not the best actor in the world.
That surprises me.
I wouldn't be putting him in my Oscar pool, I'll tell you that much. You then have Omega programming, which is self-destruct programming, also known as Code Green, which it is usually activated if someone tries to go to therapy or something that would start to unravel the programming or make them say too much.
Green for go blow up.
Yeah, basically green for like get rid of yourself. Then you have gamma programming, which is effectively stuff that is helping you be more deceptive to people. It's kind of like it would be used for people who are going to be utilized for spycraft and kind of infiltration and that kind of thing. So if you look at this from like the military aspect, a lot of this stuff is used for infiltrating other governments, other organizations, people that you don't want to like political organizations and stuff. So gamma programming would be used to make people that would be able to then infiltrate those organizations and pose as members of whatever rival organization you have and go from there. And then there's zeta programming.
This sounds like it's going to be some super secret move, like a big secret final move from a JRPG.
You're not like super far off in a way. So zeta programming isn't actually okay. So zeta programming was not on the original list of programming that I found. That was there. The original list of different types of programming came from a lecture that we'll talk about later. That came out in I think the 1960s. And this was not listed, but this has kind of been wrapped into things since then. And zeta programming is basically used to make you more willing to and open to the idea of snuff practices and human sacrifice. So it's basically like a desensitization to human sacrifice and stuff like that.
You will find blood sacrifice to Moloch incredibly badass.
Yeah. Well, you say Moloch, but this is literally the human sacrifice stuff is used to summon very powerful demonic deities, along with other forms of ritualistic worship and stuff like that.
Wasn't Moloch
not wrong there?
Wasn't Moloch the one that was at the Grove that Alex Jones infiltrated?
Yep, at Bohemian Grove.
Bohemian
Moloch
Grove
I believe he's usually represented as some form of owl god, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, something like that.
Deals with like money and trade. So that is those are the different types of programming that you'll find. There are a couple others that like got added in that we'll talk about in the next episode, but these are the ones that typically get used in the in this pop star type celebrity agent programming. So one last note before we get into the rest of it. This is a thing that doesn't just get used on celebrities. There will be sleeper agents for other purposes and of people that are not famous or intended to be famous. Some people believe that various assassins throughout history have been have been kind of part of the Monarch program, whether it's Mark David Chapman or the various people think that people think assassinated JFK, all of these kinds of things. Or if you believe there's a whole like third branch of this that we could get into that is this kind of like shotgun approach to making sleeper agents that is just like it's like they just blast out these signals through the media that people take in, and those who are kind of susceptible to it through some form of either mental illness or like just temperament, whatever, it works effectively on them, and then they just like snap and do things that are like and so that gets wrapped into a lot of like false flag conspiracies where it's a method of like causing social disruption without having it be able to be linked to any government body. But that's like a whole other side of things that is probably an entirely separate episode.
Now, do you, in your professional opinion, do you think that the guy who iced Shinzo Abe was a Monarch situation?
I think he was role-playing Dead Rising by making like a weird like put-together weapon of himself. I don't know. So I believe that operations that take place on foreign soil fall under MK Delta, technically.
Oh, okay. Well, I always saw the comparisons to the TF2 Scout. His gun, he had like the soda pop or whatever. I'm gonna blow out your stupid back, moron.
Yeah, ever since I started watching Germa, the Scout has taken on a whole different level of like significance to me, where it's hard to separate the two in my brain.
It's understandable. He is the Scout in real life.
Yeah, maybe the Scout is just a Germa alter.
Oh shit! Oh my god, Germa is a. Oh wait, no, hang on. Or are we sure that Germa is not an alter of the Scout, and Germa is just a demonic entity that sprang forth?
It's definitely possible. I don't know if anyone there have to be people that listen to this podcast that like Germa.
I guarantee
the baseball stream was great. So let's talk about some signs of Monarch programming in popular culture. This is where we're going to start getting into the things that lead to the pop star kind of stuff. So I have 10 signs of Monarch, 10 signs you might be Monarch programmed here that I'm going to go through. And these are all things that are symbology that is very popular in. I feel like I have to make one point before we do, like, to set this up. If you believe in all this kind of stuff, you basically have to accept the fact that everyone who is Monarch programmed, for some reason, puts little references and nods into literally everything they do.
Oh, nice. If your gang stalker calls you up with passcodes and secret phrases, you might be monarched.
Yeah, it's just like it's one of those things of like why do government like I saw this pretty recently where there's the flat Earth theory that people that like various government agencies that use kind of a top like North Pole based a globe representation as part of their logo, like the UN and places like that, they're softly confirming the flat Earth because they're showing that in their logo. Like how oblivious, like how oblivious do these people have to be to think like, oh, the secret government organization is going to set their logo as confirmation of this conspiracy theory because they want people to not know about it.
Well, you know, when your entire worldview is that you and a network of other truthers are the ones who know and believe and know the truth, and everybody else is either under the control of the evil cabal or just like actual stupid sheep, then yeah, I think you can genuinely justify that to yourself that like me and my truthers, we know what's real and everybody else is a fucking idiot. Like it's honestly it's the attitude that, like, I think a lot of, like, frustrated skeptics take, but flipped in reverse, right? Like, skeptics will be like, oh my god, like, we know the truth, there is no monarch mind control, and everybody who thinks that is fucking stupid. So, like, I don't know, these truthers will take this stuff and be like, no, it's the other way around. Everybody else is fucking stupid. I'm the only one who knows the truth.
Yeah, it's exceptionalism at work again. The thing that we talk about so much in this podcast. So let's. I agree with you. It is a thing that happens. You know, I agree with your both sidesism here. And we'll
thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Into the 10 signs you might be a monarch plant. So if you see a lot of monarch butterflies, that's a big one. They are, of course, a symbol of monarch programming, of course.
However,
that's where the name comes from.
I would check the migration the calendar with migrations, because if you are seeing a lot of monarch butterflies, you might be in migration season.
Well, number 2 is that you exhibit multiple personalities in your work. So like they talk about how Beyonce has sometimes calls herself Sasha Fierce and Beyonce, and then there's like Jay-Z is Hova, and like you could really look at like the Wu-Tang Clan as like,
oh my god,
the best example for this, because everyone has like 4 names they put out albums for, or maybe
so
MF Doom even.
We can't have nicknames now. Is that what I'm hearing?
Basically,
can't help being a Gemini.
Look, you can't have artistic expression without being a monarch plant, and we'll get into that. I watched a hell of a YouTube video of this person explaining stuff where they tried to like talk about the Beatles and music theory, and I was laughing so fucking hard. So but also if you use a lot of possession or satanic imagery in your works, And by satanic imagery, they can mean something as simple as like columns.
Can I guess who you're about to mention?
I don't have a specific person for this, but there's a lot of people that you could mention.
Well,
here.
The one that I remember seeing a lot in the last year from people like this was Lil Nas X.
Yeah, that would be one, and that's actually like there's a whole thing with not with Lil Nas X, but like the hip hop side of things specifically is like, do you remember this time on like conspiracy adjacent Twitter where people were talking about how Jay-Z and Beyonce were part of the Illuminati and Kanye hadn't gotten there yet, and they were like, Kanye was trying to join the Illuminati, but they weren't letting him in for some reason.
I vaguely remember this, yes.
And like, so when we're talking about this, like, I don't have like the full stories or anything on Beyonce or Jay-Z because they seem to be in the grand conspiratorial stuff here. They seem to be like leaders of this kind of stuff as opposed to plants, like as opposed to like people who have been broken by the programming. Now that's not 100% because like there's like a whole thing about Beyonce that frankly would, if I tried to cover it at all, would be its own episode. Basically I might be talking more about pop stars in the future. There is so much to this kind of stuff.
Okay, question. Do you think that Jay-Z's verse on Monster was just him listing all his different altars?
I mean, that would be one thing. There's a type of programming. I forget which one. Fuck, you're gonna make me go all the way through my notes here.
Sorry.
There's a type of programming that I wasn't gonna talk about until next episode because it doesn't get brought up in this one. That is specifically helping you do animal altars. It is epsilon programming, which is like it's used to create animal altars, which are the key to paranormal and superhuman activities and abilities. So like maybe that was just Jay-Z talking about all of his like epsilon created animal altars.
You're implying right now that a goblin is a type of animal.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. No, hey, that's fair.
They're kind of maybe a cryptid or something, who knows?
Humanoid cryptid.
Yeah. Then there's of course your beta kitten sexual imagery.
Oh boy.
Stuff. Your kind of like submissive sex kitten type of stuff, which is really just like I have so much fucking to talk about the like how the people that are into this conspiracy theory view pop culture and media. There's like that I could do a whole fucking podcast on that. Not an episode, an entirely separate podcast. But I'll rein it in for this episode.
These fucking people are goddamn coming up with this bullshit while their rock hard erections are pressed up against their chastity belts, like talking about any sexual imagery that these celebrities employ is clearly a reference to mind control. I mean, it is so. Oh my god! I'm sorry. That's just so dumb.
We will talk about it. Then there's occult hand signs, which also is stuff like covering your eye to be the Eye of Horus and stuff like that. The triangle, pyramid symbol, all that kind of stuff. Then there's the use of masks and bondage imagery, which is all about kind of your, no one can just have a kink. They have to be actually tortured through the Monarch method. And then there is the use of like multiple versions of yourself, broken mirrors, and hypnotic imagery, which is all kind of how the programming happens and represents altars. Then there is heavily reference of the Wizard of Oz is its own category.
What the fuck?
Because it is supposedly like there's a lot of stuff when it comes to Monarch programming that deals with like a dissociative state, since they're trying to induce that through hypnosis, torture, all these different things that allow you to. So like, though we're not in Kansas anymore, and this like the like getting swept up into the tornado and everything is like you're entering this new world of like the world of the Monarch program effectively. It's they have basically just decided through, for various reasons, that yet again we might talk about more later, that both Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland are two very important pieces of media, and anytime you reference those, you are referencing your Monarch programming.
Oh, well, plus in the Wizard of Oz, one of the orange people hang themselves in the background, so it's kind of dark energy.
Yeah. And then finally, if you have a lot of references to Marilyn Monroe or Marilyn Monroe obsession, as they would call it, that is also the sign you might be Monarch program.
These fucking people cannot allow anyone to be horny ever.
They can't allow. They cannot allow any sort of like baseline common metaphorical practice for the fact that celebrities are people that have feelings. This is the thing that I watched this video. Let me just skip ahead to this. We'll go back into the Bible stuff a little later, and we'll talk about this video that I watched. If you want to find it on YouTube, you just look up Gemma, Jemma King, Monarch Programming, Mind Control, and Pop Music. It's like it's an interview from some sort of some British program with this person named Gemma King, who's talking all about Monarch programming, and she's talking more about, at the beginning of the video, the first half of it is more stuff we're going to talk about next episode. And that's where she talks about like, this is a thing that you would probably be interested in, Kyle. She's talking about the Frankfurt School. There was a guy in the Frankfurt School. I have his name here.
Just understand that like when people like this start bringing up the Frankfurt School, they're like a couple sentences away from like essentially saying that it's the evil Jews. Just a heads up.
Yeah. So she's talking about the works of Theodore Adorno, who wrote books on the culture. What was it called? He has a term for it, like the culture something. He's basically talking about like effectively how mass pop culture is taking away some of the emotional and like impact of more heightened pop culture, because it's trying to appeal to both high and low art at the same time. And it was a whole thing. There was basically a philosophical treatise on the way that culture was going, and pop culture and music and pop music and all those kinds of things that he was writing about. And they basically, there's someone named Alan Watt who wrote a lot about using Adorno's ideas. I believe he was the one that was writing about the Beatles and how the Beatles were basically created to be this like cultural force that would start to like seed and dumb down the populace, and then that led to a bunch of stuff. So that leads to a lot of the stuff that we'll talk about next episode. But she started talking about how like the Beatles used atonality and 12 tone. Now, she said this like this was some sort of thing that was like the key to unlocking your brain. Like you were able to like, if I play this thing in a 12 tone, you are going to have, I have full mind control on you. She obviously had no idea what this fucking meant. 12 tone is a thing that basically is like, you are not working in a typical scale that skips one of the 12 notes in the Western musical scale. You are working in a thing that does not have there is not a like, basically there's not a 1-4-5 progression. There's not like any of that kind of stuff. Everything is just all 12 tones are in use in equal measure.
Gotcha.
It is just a like postmodernism music thing. It is just a thing that happened in like 20th century composition, where they were trying to expand the tonality of music in the scholarly music realm. And it was a subsection of atonality works that were just like not, it's this whole thing. Basically, I knew too much about this to listen to her bullshit, where she obviously had no idea what the fuck she was talking about and just thought the stuff sounded scary. But anyway, she then goes on to basically go through music videos by Lady Gaga, Rihanna, Jay-Z, and just point at stuff and be like, there's no reason this would be in that there. It makes no sense. There's no reason that they would mention, like, she was really enraptured by Jay-Z's Rockefeller, which is his record label. I believe he has a clothing line. It's a thing that he has created as a kind of brand tied to himself that is used in a lot of places. And she was talking about how he was like, there's a line that was like riding the Dow Jones and Rockefeller or something like that. And she's like, now this makes no sense if it's not satanic imagery. There's absolutely no reason this would be here. And it's like, no, you obviously don't listen to or care about rap music in any way, shape, or form and have no context or anything to understand this. So you just like don't like it, and therefore it's satanic and bad.
Yeah, just totally out of touch people just trying to interpret this shit with their really fucked up brains. Yeah, it's rough.
And she talks a lot about Lady Gaga and how like Lady Gaga, the name Gaga, is actually related to this trying to like put you in the mental state of a pre-verbal child
for fuck's
who doesn't have
sake.
words. And it's inducing this thing into your brain and kind of and making you like process things subliminally as if you were like a 6-month-old. But in reality, Lady Gaga is just a reference to a Beatles song. That's all it is. It comes from Radio Gaga. That's all. So I this is my like grand fucking frustration with this whole thing is like to go any further into like talking about any specific pop star and their monarch control methods. You basically just have to have no interest or knowledge or care about pop culture, or you can't view these people that make music or art as people that have thoughts, opinions, and feelings. You have to solely look at them as puppets of an Illuminati cabal.
You have to have the conspiracy goggles strapped firmly onto your face and then just immediately say the stupidest first thought that you have.
Yeah. So let's dive into some stuff, because otherwise this episode's going to be so fucking long. A lot of this stuff, if you look into it from the conspiratorial side of things, all of the methods of the Monarch program come from the Babylon system, which is referring to the works of Nimrod, who is the king of Babylon in the Bible. Now, the Bible calls Nimrod a great hunter before the Lord, and hunter translates to plunderer or conqueror more than it does like actually someone who is hunting animals or something.
I thought Nimrod meant like dipshit.
That is where the name comes from, is this person. It's just has been through a bunch of different reasons come to mean that through the way language has changed in the last couple thousands of years. So basically, because Nimrod would capture various men and people and bring them into slavery in Babylon and use them to build this tower that was kind of against God, this is where people believe that this whole idea of, using slavery to do things that are against God or satanic, if you want to oversimplify it, that's kind of like they'll reference the old religion or the religion with no name a lot if you're looking into this kind of stuff from that perspective. And that's what that means. It means the Babylon system and Nimrod and all this stuff that is this ancient religion of human slavery to piss off God effectively. So this then gets metaphorically linked to the Hollywood system of the 1920s and 30s, where studios would basically have a full-blown like ownership over various stars and be able to place them in any movies they wanted. And effectively, the stars would have no control over their own careers. There was similar stuff for like various musicians and stuff at the time. These practices were eventually stopped in some way, shape, or form. They're eventually changed because these practices were so predatory. But that's when they believed that these things just started to go into the shadows instead of being as overt.
We don't need a like demonic Illuminati like framework to say that like the predatory practices of like Hollywood and major record labels are bad, right? Like, yeah, they're identifying a problem that exists, and for some reason it has to be demons and like evil cabal of Jews.
Yep, it really is kind of that simple. It's they're like, they can't just be trying to make money, there has to be this other thing behind it, because there has to be some shadowy version, because people can't just be greedy for that being the reason. Like it basically overcomplicates things to just basically come around to capitalism kind of causes people to get stepped on, you know?
Yeah.
Now we can get into that's supposedly the like ancient origin of this kind of stuff. There really is no ancient origin. That's just kind of what people you'll find when you read about this kind of stuff, because it always has to be linked to this ancient shadowy cabal, because in reality, this stuff only dates back to about the 1980s, and we'll talk about that later. So let's get into some kind of examples of Monarch programming in pop stars, because that's kind of the I don't know, that's the thing this episode is kind of about. The one that really that I actually like, I watched the music video and like did some digging into it, is a Lady Gaga music video.
Yep.
For a song called "Marry the Night."
She's a classic.
There was yes. A lot of people really think that she is kind of like one of the current biggest pop star mind control people out there. She's kind of one of the like top tier ones. And there's this video called "Marry the Night," which is like a 13-minute music video that has more than just the music video part of it. There's like a whole preamble that just has her kind of narrating this scene of her being in this like hospital where she's they think she's describing her stuff as a mind control victim. She's like shown lying on a stretcher that's being pushed by these nurses that are dressed in really like fashionable stuff. And she like is talking about how they're wearing next season's fashions and all this stuff. And she says, when I look back on my life, it's not that I don't want to see things exactly as they happen. It's just that I prefer to remember them in an artistic way. And truthfully, the lie of it all is much more honest because I invented it. Clinical psychology arguably tells us that trauma is the ultimate killer. Memories are not recycled like atoms and particles in quantum physics. They can be lost forever. It's sort of like my past is an unfinished painting, and as an artist of that painting, I must fill in all the ugly holes and make it beautiful again. It's not that I've been dishonest, it's just that I loathe reality.
You know what? I actually watched this a while ago, and it was for the spirit cooking episode with what's her name, Marina Abramovich or whatever. She because Lady Gaga was at that weird weird art gala that Abramovich sort of put together with like the people who were like bathing in chocolate and stuff like that, and all kinds of weird stuff, and Lady Gaga was there, and like people were like talking about like this kind of stuff, her evil satanic Illuminati references in her music or whatever.
Yeah. So the video kind of continues, and eventually she's in like a room with what do they call it? Like the room that has basically a bunch of different patients separated by curtains, and they all get up and they're all like similarly wrapped in gauze and have an eye covered, and a lot of them, and are like seemingly all kind of injured and stuff. And so they take all of this to be various Illuminati symbols and representative of her mind control programming. This is her kind of like winking at the camera and talking about the trauma of her mind control programming. Now, there is and then it gets into the actual video, and she's dancing around to like an apocalyptic kind of like burnt out street with people, and it ends with like her in this like red dress with this big hat and fire around her, and people think that's her like being the devil and stuff. Now, there is a thing that this is about, and it's not about her mind control. And this is like a thing that really goes to my whole thing of like, you have to, if you want to believe in this kind of stuff, you have to look at these people not as individuals, but as like only puppets of this secret cabal. So I don't know if you know what this is actually about.
I may have read it when I was doing my research back then, but I don't remember.
Now it's come out since this video and since this song came out, like a couple years after it, if I remember correctly, that she was assaulted and had an abortion.
Oh.
And that was not public knowledge at the time. But that is basically this music video of her, you know, in a hospital being wheeled around and dealing with this stuff, and like all of this is about that.
Jesus,
which
man.
makes a lot of sense. And that as far as I know is like the 100% true thing. Like that is what this is. And it ends with her kind of like taking over, and like the song itself gets into her being a very like she's in like a dance studio, and she's wearing kind of like a jean jacket with a bunch of like patches and stuff all over it, and she's kind of eventually ends up just like dancing. I think I watched too many music videos. I'm trying to remember if this is one of the ones she ends up dancing like in Caution Tape, or if it's something else. But basically, it's very like if you're watching this in good faith, you see it as kind of an empowerment thing, a taking control of her direction and her womanhood or sensuality, whatever you want to talk about it. That feels like the kind of vibe of what this is, and dealing with this kind of traumatic experience that she had gone through that wasn't public at the time. But if you, it is like brought up in all sorts of mind control Monarch stuff as this like, oh, there's all sorts of imagery of her mind control programming that's just like medical stuff and just like these kind of basic things that get used in music videos. And that's what it is. Like that's what this stuff is.
That's fucked up. And I just you just have to be an incredibly special kind of American monster, Christian, whatever. Like you just, I don't know, to take that and read it as this demonic, like, wink to the camera about the Illuminati. You just, I don't know. It got way more monstrous once you explained what it was about, but like, it's already ridiculous, but now I'm just like disgusted.
Yeah, I got very frustrated doing research on all this stuff, especially when we get to the grand reveal of it all at the end. But let's talk a little bit more about a couple pop stars before we get to that, because that's kind of what this episode is about. So the big one that everyone talks about because of for reasons that you'll probably know already is Britney Spears. Britney Spears is like one of the biggest ones in terms of like coming from her early works being, you know, like a lot of her early videos. She has Hit Me Baby, or not Hit Me Baby One More Time. Yeah, that was the first one where she's dressed as a schoolgirl, and she literally like at the end of the video wakes up and none of it actually happened. And so that's like the whole like dissociation stuff, and she's very much the kind of like archetypical quote unquote sex kitten programming Monarch mind control type agent. And there's a lot of other videos like going through You Drive Me Crazy has more stuff about kind of dissociation, and there's supposedly in the video there's this factory that's producing like clones effectively, which deals into the whole like multiplicity thing of alters and people in the Monarch programming. Then in Born to Make You Happy, the video opens with Britney yet again dreaming and dissociating on a bed made of two cubes, which is a reference to the occultist symbol of the double cube or hypercube, which represents an inescapable prison. And she's wearing a shirt covered in monarch butterflies, which of course represent the genetic memories passed through the satanic bloodline. Because Britney is, of course, related to Laura Bush, which Bush is is the descendant of one of these bloodlines.
Wait, is that true at all?
I think like tangentially being related to the Bush family is partially true. I think that is. But this is the kind of stuff like it is taking details of these videos that like if you watch them as just like a person enjoying music or looking at the visuals of this thing, it's just like, oh, this is telling this little story. It's, you know, they have like, you know, a music video for this kind of stuff is like 4 minutes or whatever. So you have like a pretty short time to tell this little narrative. And it, of course, then turns into this whole like creed on the dark cabal that is controlling us all, and how Britney Spears is for some reason putting all of these symbols in her video that are just like leaking her actual programming and stuff. It's, oh man.
I'll never understand like what the point of like why even need a quote unquote sex kitten mind control celebrity? Like what's the point of that? Like, is the idea that like you're going to like what, like make the masses like more susceptible to like sexual, or like they could just go watch porn? Like, I don't really understand what the point of that is.
That is a very good question that there are both no and like a million answers to.
Yeah.
And it basically comes down to like, if you watch that video, the Gemma King thing that I was talking about, which you should probably wait until after the next episode to watch.
Okay.
They end the video talking about like, well, what does this all mean and what's the point of it? And it's a lot of it comes down to trying to indoctrinate people into accepting these ideas of like the dissolution of the family unit and hypersexuality and satanic imagery and anti-Christianity and like all these things that are just like, they're basically trying to program you for the eventual New World Order, I think is the whole thing. But there's also like the kind of like subliminal imagery side of things also is doing that. So I don't know why the agents exist, other than like the entertainment industry is this very powerful thing that is it's a thing that people willingly intake. So because you're willingly intaking these things, you're more susceptible to whatever they're telling you. Whereas like you're less tuned into things that you're not taking in intentionally. So by making these agents that they can use for pushing their imagery, their programming, their stuff out there into the world that people will then find enjoyable on their own merits and intake them willingly, it is going to be more successful in indoctrinating the masses, is my best kind of explanation for it.
Right. Yeah, and you know what, I can pick up on that, but it also just makes me wonder like, well, why do you need agents to do this? Like, you can just like do this. Like, what is Britney Spears kicking and screaming about putting on a monarch butterfly dress in her music video, and like, so you have to like turn her into a mind control slave to make her do it? Like, I get, yeah, it's fine. You know, I'm sure we're gonna get into that eventually, but
because if you look into this kind of stuff, like, Britney doesn't write her own songs. She doesn't have any control over her own career. She just does whatever her handlers tell her. Handlers are a big part of this kind of stuff, where anyone who is an agent of this stuff has a handler, which is sometimes a known person, sometimes an unknown person. If you remember back in the Andy Parrow episodes, you'll remember the whole thing about there being consistent handlers throughout his whole life and career as a super soldier or whatever the fuck. And that's a big thing here. Like, whether it's their managers, people at the record label, or people in their lives, the handlers kind of keep them under control and have these, like, sometimes will have these specific trigger words that will, like, basically bring out a different altar or cause them to do a certain thing, activate different types of their programming, all this stuff. It's incredibly wide-reaching for some reason, you know?
yeah.
It's wide scale because people want to find an all-encompassing evil that they can be mad about. And one of the things I found kind of interesting and kind of funny is when Britney Spears in 2003, she kind of almost like graduated inside of these things to go from like a teen to like an adult agent for some reason. And that's when she started doing stuff with Madonna, who is the high priestess of a lot of this kind of stuff.
Yep.
And she, at the same time, Christina Aguilera, who was also a Mouseketeer with Britney Spears, yet again Disney, back when they were kids, they performed together and were quote unquote wed to Hollywood by the Kabbalistic high priestess Madonna at the 2003 VMAs, which I believe is where they kissed, if I remember correctly.
I forgot
if you remember
about that
piece of pop culture. Yeah. which this then leads from the kind of the bridging point between her younger career, where she's more innocent, into her next video in 2004, which was Toxic, which is a much more aggressive adult sexuality. And yeah, so this is when she kind of graduated from just being this like young, in a kind of quote unquote innocent thing into a more adult sexual entity that also might be used for like Delta programming and stuff. They start talking about how the Toxic music video, she appears as many characters in this kind of like spycraft espionage scenario, which then is continued by Lady Gaga in her video Paparazzi, where she poisons her boyfriend to death while dressed in a Mickey Mouse costume. Why those two are linked, other than they're both like espionage, I don't know, but that's just like connections that these places are making that really don't make a lot of sense to me. Yeah, so this is basically like she's now a full-fledged Monarch programmed pop star doing more adult things and programming people on like darker stuff like Delta programming and stuff like that, as opposed to just the more I don't know, the more sex kitten-y type stuff. I hate that phrase.
It's pretty bad. And if their end goal is to like, you know, like sexually hypnotize people with Britney Spears' Toxic music video, then it certainly has failed on me. I might not be susceptible to Monarch programming or whatever, because all I have associated in my brain with the Toxic music video is the Hard Rock Cafe, because that's where I was when I first heard and saw that song.
Well,
so
that's just because you get it from other places. You're not susceptible to the pop stars because it's not the type of music you like. So you get it from movies, which we'll talk about next episode.
Yeah, if the Illuminati wants to make me submissive and breedable, it's Britney Spears isn't going to work.
No, you got to go through David Lynch there. So this is all leading up to supposedly when mind-controlled people turn 30, around that time period, their brain attempts to break down these barriers that have been placed in their mind and kind of reintegrate itself from all the alters that have been made of it. And so around that time is when Britney Spears had the kind of public breakdown where she dyed her hair first, then shaved it, and started to kind of have these public, very, very public kind of incidents that kind of carried on over the next series of years. And this is basically because her programming started to slip and the handlers had to kind of work to get her back under control and trot her out for various other performances to try to like reintegrate all the programming and stuff. And in 2008, supposedly the alters kind of came out in a weird way. She started in an interview. She claimed she started doing this like British accent backstage and stuff, where anytime she was doing the British accent, she seemed to not have any memory of times when she wasn't doing the British accent, and vice versa. This is all from like TMZ this is all from a conspiracy website by way of TMZ. So take some of this with a pretty heavy grain of salt. But this is all because the British thing is an alter that had manifested and was kind of taking over her programming at the time. And she seemed to be very kind of confused in interviews for a while. Then there's this weird kind of diversion into some time with Dan Aykroyd while filming the movie or a video Break the Ice. Because of Crossroads, the movie where she worked with Dan Aykroyd. Supposedly, when they were talking about being on Saturday Night Live together, Britney Spears and Dan Aykroyd, he noticed some men in blacks observing him, and then when he looked back to see if they were still there, they had vanished. And 2 hours later, the producers of a program he was taping called Out There were ordered to shut it all down, that whole program was about UFO disclosure. So Aykroyd believed all this stuff was kind of linked somehow. So that's thrown in there as well, just because why not bring Dan Aykroyd into this? And yeah, there's all this stuff that goes on to just more like videos that she has that have these imageries, that's various stuff in it. And all of that kind of culminates in her. It ends in like 2000. Let's see, 2011 with a video called "I Want to Go." Now, for people who don't keep up on this kind of stuff, we found out that like Britney Spears had a very, very restrictive conservatorship placed on her that basically like rendered her unable to make any of her own decisions. And a lot of her music videos make a lot more sense under that context. And a lot of her songs, and that has a thing that has now been recently undone, which has been nice to see that she actually has some freedom now. And hopefully that leads to her being, happier and stuff and having better control of her own life. So yet again, when you actually look at her as a person, this stuff makes more sense. If you don't look at her as a person, you can find all sorts of Illuminati shit.
Fuck the Monarch conspiracy theorist haters. I think Britney Spears is one of the few pop stars that I would consider presidential material, because frankly, I think she's the kind of person that I'd like to sit down and have a beer with.
Yeah. Didn't she have, she threw her kid like a Dragon Ball themed birthday party, didn't she?
Her kid draws like Goku and Frieza and stuff, and she proudly shares the images on Instagram. And I think that's based. That's what the kids say. Based.
Yeah. It's great. Now there's like a couple more people that I just want to mention. I'm not going to go too in depth on them because there's a whole other thing we have to get through. Shia LaBeouf had a big public thing that people thought was an MK Ultra meltdown back in like 2014. The whole thing where he wore the bag over his head that said, "I'm not famous anymore." And then in a viral video, he basically was shown doing things that where he was being like basically play acting Monarch mind control stuff. It was a video called Fjögur Piano, I believe, where he was like shown having his eyes covered in like tape while licking a lollipop and then breaking a mirror, and he's locked in a room full of framed butterflies, and all of this stuff is very like in the whole oeuvre of Monarch mind control. Now, I could very much believe that he knows that and and whoever was making this video was doing that intentionally, because this whole era of Shia LaBeouf's career seems to have been just like, anything that I can do to be provocative is what I'm gonna do. And now he just got announced to be in a Francis Ford Coppola movie. So, hey, maybe he got pulled back into the system after bucking against his programming for a while.
Bummer.
Yeah. And then another big one is Katy Perry, who I'm not going to go into in much depth, but supposedly her marriage and then divorce from Russell Brand was she got married to him as part of slipping from her programming, and then got divorced from him because he was getting into David Icke, and that was going to pull her away from her programming too much. Yeah, he's had on his podcast, Russell Brand has had David Icke and Laura Eisenhower on, and various other people in that vein.
I knew he was kind of an asshole, but I did not know that he had gotten into David Icke.
Yeah, so that is like one theory as to their divorce, that it's not just because they weren't compatible or whatever. It's because her handlers saw her programming slipping because of the influence of the free thinkers on Russell Brand, so she couldn't have him in her life, and was forced to divorce him.
Free thinkers. I do not think that is a phrase you can ever use in the same sentence as David Icke.
I agree. So let's get into where this stuff came from, because I'm not sure I ever have come across this explanation for it before. And I think that this makes so much fucking sense. So big shouts out to a website called Illuminati Rex, that has a big article that explains a lot of this kind of stuff and goes into some pretty heavy detail on where this stuff came from, and has a much more thorough thing that goes into the quote unquote monarch women that were the kind of the first people to use these terms about the monarch system and everything. And that's where you can find the origins of some of the Disney stuff in a very dark manner, that you can look into on your own time. And that's people like Kathy O'Brien is the big one. She was the first person to actually use I believe, to like bring the phrase monarch into the public eye. And you mentioned her in episode 11, but we didn't get into it very much. She supposedly is tied to the Clintons and was a presidential class monarch entity. So yeah, that's a whole other thing. But let's get into where this stuff kind of came from. And this is like a very good theory for where all of the idea of this Illuminati cabal, satanic trafficking, everything kind of came from, that I think makes a lot of sense. So you can trace all of this back to the Satanic Panic. And here's how. So back in the 1980s, there was the Satanic Panic, which kind of followed the publication of a book called Michelle Remembers, which kind of popularized the idea of satanic ritualistic abuse. It details the account of Michelle, who suffered various torture, being locked in a cage, various types of abuse, and witnessed satanic blood rituals that include infant sacrifice. This book got kind of talked about on the talk show circuit of people like Geraldo Rivera and Oprah Winfrey, and it became even more widespread after this happened. Then the McMartin preschool abuse trial happened.
You know
about that?
I'm familiar.
So for people who are not familiar, I'm not going to go into super detail, but you will find the tendrils of this throughout a lot of conspiracies today. For those who don't know, the McMartin preschool abuse trial was one of the most extensive and expensive criminal trials in American history. It centered on reports of children who would tell stories of this underground network of tunnels under their preschool, where they would be taken to become part of a large organized network of Satanists who would perform ritual sacrifices, sexual and physical abuse, kidnapping, and basically any heinous act that you can think of. These reports started to come out after the children met with these therapists, who it ended up being were using some less than scrupulous methods and were actually implanting false memories in these children. So none of it ever actually happened. But that didn't stop some of these therapists, namely one Dr. Corridon Hammond, from continuing talking about these ideas even after the trial had ended. So Dr. Corridon Hammond gave a lecture in 1992 at a Radisson Hotel in Virginia that became known as the Green Bomb speech. Now, Green Bomb is sometimes also Dr. Greenbaum, or Dr. Green, is a person that is referenced in a lot of early Monarch and even MK Ultra accounts as one of the doctors that was in control of a lot of the experiments and the Monarch programming in general. This person could be a real person, or it could be a stand-in for various. There's a theory that all of this stuff is actually a less believable, colorful fabrication of false memories implanted to cover up actual government projects, or it comes from mentally ill people that have these dissociative ideas of and false memories of their life. So there's a couple different theories of that, but the Green Bomb speech was this thing that he went and talked about this stuff, and this led to wrapping in the whole ideas of this like secretive cabal of Satanists building an army of sleeper agents who would carry out all of their nefarious plans and businesses, including, but not limited to, assassinations, prostitution, child porn and snuff films, and international arm dealing, all to lead to a satanic rule over the world and the inevitable like taking over the world by this satanic cabal, which is, when you add just the term Illuminati to it, is basically a lot of the New World Order conspiracies. He actually, in this Green Bomb speech, mentions Monarch by name as a U.S. intelligence black budget program. He also talks about the Illuminati and publicizes a lot of the ideas that make up the entire Illuminati satanic cabal conspiracy theory. Some of his sources were people like Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips, who were a supposed Monarch woman and the deprogrammer, respectively, along with other deprogrammed Monarch assets. So you can trace like all of the stuff that we talk about when it comes to this satanic, wide-reaching governmental, like secret government organization, kind of back to this book from that spawned the Satanic Panic in the 1980s. Before that, like MK Ultra, I want to make it clear, MK Ultra is a thing the government did. they experimented with methods of like impressing ideas on people and hypnosis and even like torture to gain control over people. So that stuff is real. MK Ultra was a real thing. Monarch is effectively comes out of the Satanic Panic, and because the actual Satanic Panic didn't work, quote unquote, it then morphed into the stuff that we see today as the Illuminati secret cabal conspiracy theories, as far as I can tell.
Jesus Christ. That is depressing.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about I've kind of almost covered the Satanic Panic a couple times, and I've run into some of this stuff before, but I had not heard of the connection here. But it makes sense.
Yeah, it's like there's probably more specifics to it that you can get into, but I wanted to keep kind of a broad, high-level version of it instead of, because like otherwise this would be like a 4-part episode, and I didn't want to do that. But even in that lecture that he gave, he had the programming categorized by Greek letter.
Oh my God.
The template was there. And now he got the information from people like Kathy O'Brien and various other supposedly Monarch deprogrammed assets. And so back in the episode that you did, you were talking about a guy named Ron Patton. He's a guy that has a lot of writings about the Monarch programming and the whole system and everything. And after writing about those things, he later kind of stepped back a lot of the things he said because he realized that he didn't believe he could trust his sources, who also were people like Kathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips and a couple other people in that same vein. So like a lot of the stuff that started all these things comes from a couple of people that have somewhat been shown to be not trustworthy. And it just has like, because of the climate in the world at the time, in America at the time, it just like came in at the right time to go into this super dark theory of like this grand unified theory of evil, basically, which I found this whole explanation incredibly interesting.
It's crazy that the Satanic Panic could have, I don't know, the 80s and the Satanic Panic and all that stuff, I feel like it really does not, like, thinking about it now, it establishes the tenor of fringe paranoid thinking for decades to come, and that's fucked up.
Yeah, I agree. So there's a whole theory that the Monarch stuff is actually, like I said, falsely implanted memories because these people actually went through MK Ultra programming, and also people think that UFO abductions might be the same thing. It's basically like a theory that people won't believe if you talk about, or if a therapist uncovers it, that is basically hiding the actual thing that was done to you, and that is, I guess, a possibility. Like I don't know, but I got really deep on this.
That's so next level. We got to be super
I'm probably gonna go back
brain.
and put like, I'm probably gonna go back and put like a blanket warning over this whole episode at the beginning of like, we're gonna talk about some stuff that is like uncomfortable. But that's basically what I have for you this week, and we will do the other part of it next week. That is probably going to be a little less insidious. It's going to be a little more, I don't know, still in the vein. But we're going to talk about movies and directors and twinning next week, which is going to be fun.
I want to know how Lilo and Stitch created an army of Illuminati mind controlled children.
Man, I'll have to Google Lilo and Stitch for this kind of stuff. I don't know. I did not come across that as a reference point, but there are a lot of movies that I came across. I'll tell you that much.
Excellent.
So let's go ahead and do a big question and wrap this one up. So all of this Monarch agent stuff unravels at around the age of 30 and is focused on very youth-oriented professions such as pop stars and like actors and stuff like that. since we're both relatively recently leaving that age bracket, I want to kind of talk about, what do you think if you were trying to create a mind-controlled agent appealing to the 30-plus crowd?
Oh.
That what kind of profession or kind of person would that be?
Oh, God. Oh, Jesus. Well, I think I'm going to just speak from my own personal experience, I guess. I think we're going to have to just start seeding secret coded messages in actual code itself, right?
Okay.
I think, we're going to have to start targeting web developers. They're too busy looking at their big computer screens with if, then this, and all that shit. And then to like pay attention to movies and the pop culture media that would enslave them to monarch mind control. So I think we're going to have to aim at that from, and I just can't think of anything else. It's been a long work week.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
Look, I know you have code on the brain. I know you've had a lot of work stuff happening this week, so that's okay.
It just,
I do think that like that is a bit of narrow casting. I think,
yeah, a little bit.
It will work,
Well, I don't think that we're going to be able to like, get. I personally think that we need to start narrowing down our monarch mind control systems here a little bit so that we can just like focus on particular industries, and just kind of bit by bit get through them. Because like I don't think that the Britney Spears style shit worked, frankly.
I mean, it misses certain crowds, and I think we can fill in some niches if we use both your method and what I have planned here.
Okay.
So you've got the coders, you've got kind of the tech crowd. I'm gonna deal with the middle-aged people that are like there's the whole thing about like when you get to a certain age, the dads get into like World War II writings, and like moms tend to get into your kind of either like romance or mystery novels. So I want to target the like authors of those of like nonfiction World War II tomes, and also like kind of trash book writers. You're like I don't know, we could fit in like your like Clive Cusslers and stuff in here. Okay. Because I think that like if you get them under your control. Now, some people do think Stephen King is a mind-controlled asset, and that's a whole other thing. But I think we want to target these people that just write a lot of these books and just churn them out. And like, I know my mom would come home with like a stack of like 15 like books of just like these like kind of trashy mystery novels. Like that whole like the Cat Who Whatever series, and like the series are like A is for whatever. Those things.
Yeah, I remember those.
Target those authors.
Okay.
Because these are things that the people over the age of 30, the people in their middle age, just consume willingly and at large and very quickly. So I think that is a good place to target, and I think that will kind of deal with like we got the pop stars for the young people. We're going to target authors of these two kind of niche, but very kind of stereotypical for this age bracket. I think we're going to target them and really just nail down the over 30 crowd that way.
Okay, I like it. Yeah, it's and Stephen King, as you mentioned, he's already too far gone. He is, after all, the one who shot and killed John Lennon. So
I forgot that we did that. Yeah. Yep.
Excellent. So programmers and people who read, pulpy books. That'll cover everybody.
Trashy novels and World War II literature. Yeah. So I think that'll cover basically everybody. And speaking of covering things, let's talk about all the places you can find us. Take care of some business.
Yeah.
So if you want to find us, you can follow us on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/ItGetsWeirdPodcast.
And we're on all your favorite podcatchers, from Stitcher to Google Play to Apple Podcasts to Spotify. If you listen to podcasts somewhere, look up It Gets Weird, and we're probably there.
Email us at itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. Are you Monarch mind controlled? You probably won't be able to tell us if you are, but nonetheless, email us and tell us all about it. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. Look, if you are Monarch mind controlled, it is your imperative, as we are Monarch agents, to donate to us at patreon.com/itgetsweird. We have a $2 tier and we have a $5 tier. At the $2 tier, you're going to get access to our show, It Gets Weird TV, every other week. We're currently wrapping up the show Gravity Falls. We watch a weird TV show and talk about it on this show. And then at the $5 level, you're going to get that show plus another show on the off weeks of It Gets Weird TV. It's sometimes my show, sometimes Niall's show, very occasionally Garrett's show. Sometimes we watch a movie, all kinds of stuff. So at the $5 tier, you're getting weekly bonus content. Whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to the mainline episodes 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday. You get access to our Discord where we're hanging out, talking about UFOs and cryptids and all kinds of shit. And you get the satisfaction of, supporting your favorite podcast. We also have a $1 tier, which is just a tip. You don't get anything out of it. You're just saying, hey, like your show, here's $1 a month, and we thank you for it. If you can't donate, please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird podcast.
All right. Thank you all for listening. This has been It Gets Weird, and I've been Niall.
And I'm Kyle, signing out.